Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. If you're listening, then you can't see what I'm putting on the streaming video for the interview we're about to do. It's unusual. I have 3 books we're talking about. They are all written by our guest, Eve Olsen. She's in the studio, Eve A. Olsen. If you're looking her up on Amazon in one of the books, they're all called Crackshot, and they've got subtitles. We'll talk about that right now. Eve has been with us before. She is a model. She worked in Hollywood as an entertainment reporter. She wrote a syndicated column for over 200 newspapers nationwide. She rode 100 miles along the Outlaw Trail in Wyoming. I rode the In-Law Trail for 9 years, by the way. She's an illustrator, a horse trainer, a dog trainer, and I have questions about that. And, of course, a very prolific author. And so 3 books in one interview. Good morning, Eve. How you doing?
Good morning.
So how do you find time to write all these books?
I work super late at night.
Look at the 3 books together, though. Wouldn't that be a nice one book? Have you ever thought about just making it one big old book?
When I first wrote it...
Like a Harry Potter kind of a big book, right?
When I first wrote it, I thought about doing it in one book.
Yeah.
And I find most people like to read in a shorter format. They want it...
I know.
It's a real tome.
Yeah.
You know, it's 600 pages, not comfortable to sit with. People don't want to, like, commit to quite that much right away. But I had written it as 3 volumes when I wrote it, so that...
Did you?
I mean, they were split. It was split up within the one huge book into 3 volumes. So when I made it into 3 volumes, they were already laid out as 3 books.
Did they all come out at the same time?
I released all of them at the same time because.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
I asked people about it, and people find it's a little annoying when you don't know. I think once you're really established and you're a huge author,
right,
then you can write the first in the series, and everybody's going to buy it afterwards.
Then you got to wait,
anxiously awaiting.
Yeah.
And if no one's read your stuff before and they're gambling on the first time, they want to know what's going to end. Are you going to write it?
So in the future you'll be doing it the other way, right?
I hope so.
So what was the thing? I have never been a binge watcher. You know, this is a new trending thing. People will watch like a TV series.
I've been a binge watcher for years.
Have you really?
Yes.
Now, so I never did this before, but recently I started doing it. And now binge watching for me, 2 episodes and I'm done. I can't go more than 2. But we saw this TV show called, what's it called? Suits. You ever see this TV show called Suits?
No.
Yeah, it's a lawyer thing. But anyway.
It's 8 years old.
It's 8 years old. They wear suits.
Yeah.
And they file suits. So I figure that's the way they name it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Is this a Netflix thing?
No,
Is
it was
it?
USA Today, and now they have it on Netflix now where you can watch it, yeah.
But anyway, so the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's kind of like if you have 3 books at once, you can be a binge reader.
And the people have been binging.
Yeah.
People who've read it so far, yeah. I've gotten contacted by various people through either Facebook or...
So what is the theme? What is the theme through Crackshot?
Crackshot is the dream. It starts out as the dream.
Put your picture there you are.
The 1880s was a different period in history. Now that the railroad's gone through and it's crossing America, now we're full on into our manifest destiny. And we're going to take over the plains. We're now able to get to California cheaply instead of costing over $1,000, maybe surviving your trip around the Horn or the dangerous trip across country. Now you can take the train for $150.
Is that really the prices from back then?
Yeah.
So $1,000 must have been like, what, $100,000 today?
Staggering amount of money.
Yeah.
And, $1,000 to $1,500 to just get there.
Wow. And that's in those days?
And that was in those days for the 49ers.
Wow.
And so, I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure, worked their way across ship or whatever it was, or they did their hazardous journeys. And now you can go, you could take all your things. And now is the beginning of what they called the nobility ranches.
What was the real allure back in those days? Why did we move from the East Coast to the West? What was out there other than gold? Was it all about the gold?
Well, for California originally, I think you had during the gold rush, it was all about the gold and the idea of making your fortune. Later on, I think it was the creation of the bigger ranches, and this was also the period where There are two heroes, one who owns the ranch already, but doesn't have the money to stock it, and then the other young hero who's a second son. So he has money, and this is a period of time when people had money, were going out, but they aren't the inheritors. They won't be getting the plantation, they won't be getting the giant farms. His young bride, his childhood sweetheart, is a daughter. She will not be inheriting her family's plantation. So what you have are two bold, adventurous people with money, but no outlet for it. Not really. They have a small farm that they're lucky enough to have in Virginia, but they aren't going to have the thousands and thousands of acres that their parents had.
So do you call this a historical novel?
It is a historical novel.
Yeah, because you do your research.
The research was all done thoroughly. There are a couple dates which I've used artistic license for a year in a direction or two.
Sure, yeah.
Because Crackshot Ranch had to be in Rifle, Colorado. I'm sorry, and Rifle became Rifle officially in 1880, and they're out there in 1880, and
So there is a Rifle, Colorado?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, all the stuff in Colorado, that's all in the places. I lived out there for 6 years.
Oh, you actually live there?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so you
lived
know
about
the
20
area. Okay.
Yeah, I lived about 20 miles from Glenwood Springs, which is where part of it's set and where they first take off. They get off the train from the East Coast.
So is there a real Crackshot Ranch?
There is no real Crackshot Ranch.
Okay, so
Not yet.
so
Or
where,
at least
that's yours.
that idea, Rob. Now
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
yours when you
I'd
move
say
back
currently our place is Old Horse Farm.
up. So do you have a story behind the name, Crackshot?
I liked the idea of a Crackshot Ranch in Rifle, Colorado, and the fact that all three of my heroes and heroine are crack shots. And this is why the ranch became named that.
Okay, so help me out with this. That means a good shot with a gun.
Oh, yeah.
A crack shot. Okay.
Absolutely.
Are you good
Everybody
at that?
uses-
Are you a good shot?
Yeah, actually, I'm a pretty good shot.
Nice.
I am a pretty good shot. I don't shoot very often. I also like firing. I like shooting arrows. I'm a pretty good shot with
Oh,
that.
really?
I'm kind of a jock, so I'm good at most sports. I'm a wicked good squash player.
Well, what's really nice about these books is that all three books, they all interweave, because even when you get to the third novel, you're still going back in your head to the first two. And I think your writing is absolutely spectacular, because sometimes I can sort of tell what's going to happen at the end, and this one I haven't been able to. So you've done a great way of going around things, and all of a sudden there it is.
I'm thrilled. So far, everybody has told me they weren't expecting the ending. And as I said before, I'm really
Did you
thrilled
expect the ending?
because
Or
I start with my ending.
Oh, you do.
My
So you
books,
knew. You knew
I
the
always
ending.
know what my ending
Oh,
is when I
okay,
start my
okay.
book. That's part of. When I write, I'm heading towards a goal. So I have my beginning. I have what I'd like to have happen, certain elements that I want to have happen in the middle, certain adventures or exciting things. And then I have my ending, and I know what's going to happen at the end. So for me, the ending is very predictable, because that's where I'm going.
So the big challenge as a writer is how to get there.
Yeah.
I like the competition, too, within the families, because competition is healthy. Mm-hmm. And I think you express that very well.
Well, thank you. I have two older brothers, so I'm sort of a competitive type.
Oh, is that where it comes from?
Yeah, I have a brother who's 5 years older and brother who's 2.5, and I went everywhere with them, and no one ever worried about what I wanted, but I was allowed to go, so I thought it was cool, and learned all kinds of things to never do in your life, because I watched the boys do it, and I was like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm very good at learning from other people's hard way, rather than my own.
And that's one of the things, too, about when the people moved, when you had illustrated that the people moved from out east where all the comforts were, they wanted more than that. They just didn't want to be lethargic and just exist. They wanted some kind of adventure, and they wanted the sense of being able to build things on their own and take pride in their work.
Mm-hmm. They also come from not so much the younger male hero, but the heroine comes from a very unconventional family. Her mother was the daughter of an actress and a great beauty, but did things her own way, and her family kind of did things their own way. And if they weren't so unbelievably rich, they probably couldn't have gotten away with it. Mm-hmm. But I've found from studying women in history that we have massively famous portrait painters from the 15th century because that daughter was the most talented child of that artist. So he trained her. He didn't bother to train his sons. What was the point? She ended up being the painter for the court. I forgot one of her names. But that this is a was a common theme throughout history, is that people felt, if they felt their daughters were talented and they were rather unconventional themselves, they educated that daughter, or they trained that daughter for whatever job it was.
Right.
And plenty of women have been wearing men's clothes for centuries upon centuries. It's just no one realized that that was them.
Oh, certainly.
So in 1880, what kind of acting job would there be? Were movies
The women
out yet?
in the theater.
Oh, in the theater, live theater.
Yeah,
and that
live
was that was a
theater.
good job in those days.
I think that for a pretty woman
Yeah.
who didn't have enormous amounts of social standing, that probably was her best shot.
Yeah, yeah. People come to the
and
theater.
then a wealthy businessman might decide to marry you, just like the Goulds in New York.
Yeah.
The Gould family, she was an actress.
Uh-huh.
So I said, so that is based on, it isn't based on her, that mother, but that situation is based on things that really happened.
When you write these stories, do you incorporate the political climate of the day? I mean, women weren't treated exactly the same then as they are now. There was, slavery was already abolished, but there was probably still some issues regarding the livelihoods of those people who had formerly been slaves.
That is part of the reason why Morgan, the heroine's maid and childhood friend, her and her husband decide to move out west, is that they have many more opportunities than they will in Virginia.
Oh, really?
So Morgan invites her maid to join the staff and everybody at the big ranch party. This could never have happened in Virginia at that time, in a million years.
That adds to the answer that she gave earlier about why we moved. Why did Americans from the East Coast move out west? It sounds like the same reason we moved from Europe to here was because the government started becoming too controlling.
And restrictive.
Wow.
The lifestyle was certainly restrictive, and something as unconventional as Morgan and Justin Ashworth were. The West is wide open to them doing what they want. They don't have to worry about it. Morgan doesn't have to worry about if she's wearing men's clothes. Everybody admires her ability on a gun and her horse training talents that she's learned from her grandfather.
So when you have a gun and you're out in the West, where did they buy their bullets? I mean, they made them, I'm guessing, right? But how did you get the gunpowder?
No.
What's the story there?
The bullets by then are cartridge bullets. I mean, this is now post-Civil War. And you buy you take your casings in, and they refill the casings.
I'm sorry, I don't know this stuff. Okay. So all right,
but I'm not actually a super gun pro, and I don't have a gun anymore.
But in 1880.
In 1880, they also were cartridges.
So there would have been a gun store.
You refilled them yourself, and you had the kit, or you took it in. Oh yeah, all those dry goods stores and stuff. They all sold guns and ammunition,
that's what they did.
And you filled up, yes, pretty much like you do now.
Oh my gosh, really?
With probably the same amount of licensing.
Yeah, right.
I like how the story in each of your books escalate to the end, but in the 3 novels, when you wrote Troubled Waters, I thought that was the most exciting.
That's interesting. I think I like What Will Be. This is my favorite. And then the first book, of course, is the happy book because it's the beginning of the dream. And it's before all the stuff happens.
And that's really that was a problem back then, because once you have this dream and you want to go and find a dream for your own, you are leaving your family, and it's not like today where you can look on Skype and things like that, because usually when you left your family back then, you knew in your heart you might not ever see each other again.
Absolutely. Morgan and Justin are lucky because now in the 1880s, a wealthy family could come to visit and did. This is the beginning of tourism and stuff. People were going out west to see the Grand Canyon, and so I mean they were very fortunate. But yeah, certainly during this period,
if you didn't have the money, you just
that was it.
That was it.
Yeah,
you
were the desperate pioneers,
and hope for the best.
And hopefully you'd even get a letter from them again. You might not even get a letter from your family again if you went to places that were too hard to reach. So.
And sometimes religion plays an important aspect in the books. How did you deal with that? With putting it in or leaving it out?
I left it out. I don't like to be
Yeah, I think we had a conversation like that last time you were
I don't
here.
like to be too involved with religion.
Yeah,
I think, so many problems.
It is an interesting element in history, though. Not to be religious necessarily, but to understand that some of the decisions people made were based on their religions.
Well, even if you even talk about a book like Anne of Green Gables, it was a big deal if the Methodist married the Lutheran.
Right.
I mean, it's all Christianity.
Yeah.
And I think people have always had this tendency to become cliques and to make themselves small groups, maybe to feel more important because they're not just small fish in this vast ocean, but now they're small fish in a small pond.
Yeah, right.
And
go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking maybe that's why a lot of small towns popped up also in this country, not just out west, because, if you're, let's say, in Virginia and your sights are set on California, maybe you stop in Colorado either because, wow, this is beautiful, I think we're just going to live here, or, there's only 20 people here, I think I like it, instead of going to another populated area.
Perhaps. I think there's a comfort in a small town, but also a small town where everybody in the small town was Methodist. They all went to the same church.
Right.
I worked at a dairy farm when I was 10 years old for a summer. I mean, I was housed and taken care of by the family, but then I also worked on the dairy farm. It was very rural.
Wow.
And they went 50 miles to their church, which was a Methodist church.
Oh, my.
And everybody in that area was Methodist, of course. And the kids went to a one-room schoolhouse for real. This is a child coming from New York City.
Oh, my gosh.
And my class was small at my private school of 100 students. And this class is 12 grades.
Oh,
and they
my
have
gosh.
20 students.
Oh, my God.
And the kids rode the bus an hour and 15 minutes to get to the school in the morning to collect all those children. And so, sure, they knew everybody within probably an hour or so of them. They were 5 hours out of Halifax.
Oh, my gosh.
Let me just reintroduce you. Eve A. Olsen is in the studio. She has 3 new books. They came out at the same time. They're all called Crackshot. The book number 1, I think, is The Way West. Book number 2 is Troubled Waters. I think that was Robin's favorite. And What Will Be is the 3rd book. And I think Eve likes that one the best, right?
Well, it's a summing up.
It's kind of hard, right, when you write it to actually have a favorite.
Well, I think I like the way the story ties up at the end. It touches your heart. What happens, and my characters are all decent people making hard decisions. Trying to do the right thing, even if it's not the thing that's necessarily the most comfortable for them, or what will make them instantly the most happy. Or
is that harder to write than to write evil people? Sometimes it seems like a lot of stories have evil people, and it almost seems like it's easy to write evil people. It's harder to write nice people who are having hard times, right?
I have so many people inside my head. So that I can't say anybody's Harry is Harry. And Harry always does it. Port Billingsley, he's a slime, but he always is Port Billingsley. So, it's really pretty straightforward, all of them, whether it's the wicked guy or because they can't do anything other than what they would do because they are who they are.
Is it important for us as readers to know why they are who they are?
I feel it's important as a reader. I like to know everything that's going on. And so when you read my books, you don't just know what the main characters are thinking, you know what the lesser characters are thinking. And when you're sitting around the fire before a big shootout, you have one person with one thoughts, somebody else with completely unrelated thoughts, and you work your way around the fire, so you're part of it. And I think that when you only know what the main hero or heroine are thinking and everybody else is just kind of a supporting role without real depth, you aren't part of the story. And I think that with my books, you become part of the story.
I found all 3 books on Amazon. Let me put them up here real quickly again. And I was going to ask you if you have a website for the books other than Amazon?
No. I have a website with books, or if people contact me through Instagram or Facebook, I've had people who contact me and I send signed copies to them. And so we've sent signed copies, as far as Australia and Sweden, and The Enchanted Hollow is being read by a Swedish 6th grade class.
I hope they send you postage money.
Oh, yeah, they have to.
Another wonderful thing about your books is that you really opened up my eyes for the historical part. I mean, all these years I thought, when a person has a ranch, they've got the money for the animals and everything else that it takes, but that wasn't exactly the case in your books. One person had the land, one person had the animals, and they had to try to live together and come up with agreements as to how the money was dispersed and things like that. And I found that very fascinating.
Oh, good. Yeah, so many books are written about just the way west during the frontier period and the pioneer period. And not a lot of books are written about where it was the creation of the great ranches.
Exactly.
And that was later on. And Morgan and Justin are bringing a lot to the table. And they're going to be able to create something much greater than Harry could have done alone.
The one sentence I could relate to was, he curled his arm around her neck and kissed her, just a brief one, then collapsed again on the pillows. That sounds... I've had that experience. Just...
I think a few people have had that experience. Anyway, it's definitely at least as steamy as Wife Wanted. I think more steamy than Wife Wanted a little bit.
Yeah, but you also allow people to take scenarios a step further in their head, whether it's a shootout or that kind of an intimacy for their relationship. And I think that's very clever of you to do that. Everything is not A, B, C, D in your books.
Oh, great. I've been so excited. My proofreader read it 9 times, and then she said she was excited to read the final drafts in hard copy.
I bet.
I thought, my God.
It's like a baby being born, right?
Yeah. Well, it was that she actually found the story absorbing enough to keep reading it over and over. And so, I was thrilled.
And you do have dialogue in there. The dialogue is most excellent. So eventually, hopefully, this will be made into a miniseries or a movie. You're all set for the scriptwriter because you write excellent dialogue.
Thank you. I love writing the dialogue. Well, it goes back to the thing of Harry can only say what Harry would say because Harry is Harry. And Morgan she has to say what Morgan would say. So, all the people are really clear in my head when I write my books.
And they don't, their personalities, you can't see one personality in another. You're able to keep that all separate, and that's pretty amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, like I said, they're all very definite people in my mind. And whatever book I'm writing, they are all very definite people in my mind.
So tell me about your work as an animal trainer. I have a question about this.
Animal trainer.
Yeah,
I trained horses for years. As a child,
and
I learned to train dogs and
horses. Okay.
The dogs I was very into when I was a young kid, like 12 years old, and my terrier, I'm going to say my poor terrier, but actually she liked doing all the tricks. But my terrier, she knew how to do all the hand signals and, did multiple tricks of leaping this. And, she even pulled a dog sled with our local kids in the dog sled team when we had enough snow in New York City. She was with the Irish.
Where'd you live in the city? Where'd you live?
My mom still lives there. She's on Central Park West on the...
You're kidding.
On 69th Street, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. She a rich lady?
Well, when she bought it when I was 8 years old.
And they have rent control.
Right? No, she's not rent control. She bought the apartment when I was 8 years old.
So she owns it.
Oh, she's owned it forever.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
My mom had a friend. I don't know where she lived, but it was somewhere in the city. It might have been in Queens. But they have rent control, or at least they did when she got it.
I have some friends who have that.
And she's probably passed away by now, but she had the same rent as she did in the 40s.
Very tough on the landlords.
Right. They couldn't wait for her to die.
I have friends, and her boyfriend, I don't remember what rock band he's from, some sort of Twisted Sister or something.
Oh, really?
At any rate, he and she both met because they lived in the same building. They were both rent controlled.
Oh,
right, because there's no limit to how much money you make if you're rent controlled. And anyway, the building finally, agreed to, if they would sell them one of the apartments, they would let them buy the other apartment as a condo. I don't know, some kind of complicated thing, but they got this unbelievable deal when they got married.
Wow.
But it's why the rent is so high in Manhattan, is because, the whole city, is because the landlords say, well, in 5 years, if you're still living here, we could get more. So they raise it right now. So it's kind of hard.
Well, there's also just such limited space in Manhattan.
Do you get back often?
I go back about once a year.
Yeah, but it's
my mother sells real estate in New York, so that's why I know.
But the sky's the limit. There's a new building in the Upper West Side that is gigantic. It's horrible looking. It's just a skinny little thing. Have you seen it? A tall building. I don't know. It's got to be 100 stories. It's gigantic.
I do
Just
not know
just a
where it
big,
is.
tall apartment. I don't even know if it has a name. All right. Anyway.
Your writings, you're very prolific because you write for adults, you write for children, and you really know how to keep the writing levels for your particular audience. And I think that's outstanding.
Well, that's awesome. The children's book, I've had quite a lot of adults reading it too, because it's fantasy.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. I was going to say, but yeah, I've had a lot of the adults who told me that they enjoyed reading it as much as the kids did, or,
Oh, I love them.
yeah.
Yeah, I love them. So I didn't finish my question about training animals. I've always wondered about, no, I don't know about horses, but dogs. Okay. It seems like there are people who train dogs to do specific things on command, like roll over, that kind of thing, right? And then there are other dogs who seem to know not to run out into the street, and you don't have to say a word to them. They just know you don't run in the street.
And did you not have smart children and stupid children in your school classes?
Are you saying
Okay.
that training a dog is the same as training a child?
We are all carbon-based life forms. Every one of us.
So, well,
Dolphins,
yeah.
dogs, cats. You'll have the more obedient ones. I have a new Russian
Can you train a
wolfhound. She
jellyfish?
is on the cover of the book.
Who
There's
is?
Sable. This is our dog, Sable.
Okay.
I used to breed Borzois, which is why they're, of course, written in my books.
But wait a minute. So you train dogs the same way you treat
Sable.
child?
Sable is actually fairly easy to train for Borzoi. They're not known for being trainable, but she worries terribly about what other people think. My previous Borzois would have been in the trash and just looked at me and blinked their eyes and gone, "Okay, I'll take it. It was worth it. It was worth it." And you're looking like, "God, I don't even want to hit you now because you're blinking your eyes at me."
Yeah.
Right? And Sable, I walk in the house when we've been gone for a bit, and she's like, "Oh my God, was I good? Please, was I good?" And she worries terribly about it.
Oh,
so
my.
she's been quite easy to train. I have a thing on my Instagram where you see me and it looks like I have a leash, and then I put my hair behind my ear because she's on an invisible leash.
Aw.
And, she's very good, but she won't give me her paw. Her paw apparently is only for poking me when she wants some attention.
Oh, I see. There
So
you go.
I've taught her how to heel. She does her silent hand signals.
Yeah,
She'll
but
sit, she'll stay, she'll do the whole thing. I say, "Give me your paw," and she's like, "Oh, I can't do that."
Okay, but I'm talking about the things animals learn that don't require commands.
Okay, my brother's dog who lived in New York,
Right.
my brother never watched him. He was a stray dog.
Right.
The dog would look both ways when he crossed the street. The dog lived
that's
to be
what I'm
15
asking.
years old, took off from my brother's apartment when he felt like it, did whatever, took himself to the park, died of natural causes at 15 years old.
That's my question.
my.
Because the dog was smart. He was incredibly smart.
So you don't train them? You don't say at some point when the
My
dog
brother
is...
didn't train this dog to do anything. He's my flaky brother, not my together brother.
So the answer to the having a smart, not a dog who follows commands, but a dog who knows the street can be dangerous.
Yes.
That dog learns it from what? From you, the trainer, or from himself?
Oh, that sort of thing they have to learn themselves. I don't think a
Really?
person could teach a dog about the street. Maybe they could. I don't know. I never have. I would never know how you
horse?
would get that across.
Does a horse have the same capacity to learn as a
I
dog?
don't think that.
Carbon-based, or whatever you said.
Yeah,
So is a jellyfish, by the way.
Yeah, we're all carbon based.
But jellyfish never get old. Did you know that?
That's pretty
That's what
amazing.
they
So
say.
then they never get old. They just exist.
I don't know
They're
what
an
that-
eternal being.
Just a turtle eats them and they're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only way a jellyfish dies
Is by being
is
eaten.
if something eats it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not
Isn't
know
that weird?
It is weird as can be, as a matter of fact.
And there's a hint in the jellyfish as to eternal life. We have to just study it.
We have to find it.
The only problem is you got to live in the water. You got to be up and down all day long. Pushing through that water.
And you have to avoid being eaten by sea turtles.
When you did your research for the book and you had one-on-one conversations with people, they must have welcomed you.
For which book?
For the first one, the very first one, because that's something that you really have to do a lot of research on for moving from.
I grew up on the East Coast, so I mean, we've done a lot of road traveling. My parents are both historians.
Oh, I see.
We traveled around an enormous amount, so most of my research would have come from reading as opposed to meeting people.
Oh, okay.
Although I've talk to people later on and change some things because they're from the South, or they said, oh, this wouldn't be done. I always listen to
I
everybody.
see.
Oh, really?
Who gives? I like to listen to everybody's input. That's what was so much fun about working with the photos for this book. To work with Gary and Poppy Moe, who are the cowboy experts for the photographs, and Lala Rook, Lassie, who had all these unbelievable period carriages. And they're like, oh no, well this couldn't be this case, or oh, we would need to have this there, or oh no, cowboys didn't have those kind of chaps, they had these kind of chaps.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so our pictures are really unbelievably authentic.
That is amazing.
I had seen illustrations from an 1880s Tennyson novel with Tristan and Isolde, and they did photographs with models, and they had like 10 or 15 in the book. So it was like this, an almost illustrated book where you have pictures to enhance the book as you go along, but it's
Right.
not an illustrated story. And that was what I was trying to achieve with the Crackshot books, is the feeling of an 1880s novel when they put those kind of pictures in, and gave you a little bit, enhanced your story with the models from this period. And yeah, originally it started with one 1880s photo of a cowboy that I saw
Oh, neat.
on the internet, and I was like, this is what I want. I want one of these for each of the partners in each of the books. So that was the original idea, was to do these cool covers, and then I would have one on a horseback, one shot of each of my main characters. And so I talked to my friend Poppy Moe. She's a custom chaps maker here, and she made Morgan's beautiful chaps. And I said to Poppy, do you have any props? Because I'd been to her studio before and I knew what she had. She was like, well, let me think about it. I showed her the picture and she goes, I think I could recreate that. And that's what started with all the illustrations. Then, of course, I'm madly in love with her husband. Her husband is a state trooper who loved Wife Wanted. Ex-state trooper, rodeo cowboy. And that's why I always tell people Wife Wanted is not just a ladies' book.
Yeah.
And Gary, I'm in love with this buckskin horse. Is there any chance I'd love to put your buckskins on a cover. And then he was excited by the idea of being in the book.
That
And so
is
Gary
exciting.
Moe
That
is
is
on the
exciting.
cover driving his team of buckskins.
That
and
is
I used his
beautiful.
shots, and we got so many fabulous shots, I realized I can't only do 3 shots. I'd have to throw out dozens and dozens of photos that are great.
Yeah,
So we
right.
decided to put them in, but 2 per chapter pretty much is how it worked.
I love that. I really love that, because you don't just do words, you have that great visual.
Let me pass Robin a note real quickly and tell you once again you're listening to Eve Olsen. Eve is here to talk about her books that she's written. So, and as Robin pointed out, you're prolific in that you have more than one style. You have more than one audience. Crackshot is a series of books we're talking about today. The Way West, Troubled Waters, and What Will Be. All 3 books are available already, right?
Yes.
So I have a question about marketing. Do you like doing this part of what the writing is about, getting the word out and talking to radio geeks and all that stuff? I mean, do you enjoy doing this part of it?
I love doing the interview part. I'm not as good at marketing the book. My husband does the promotion.
You're doing pretty
talks
good
to
right now.
people.
What do you mean you're not good at
I
it?
can, once I'm sitting down, like at the book signings, I have
This
no
is it.
problem selling the book.
That part too, I
But
wondered about
to
that.
go into a place and say, God, I'm terrific. You need to read my books. I can't
No,
do it, but
yeah, right.
he can go in and say, God, my wife is so talented. I'm so proud of her. You got to read my books, and it doesn't sound awkward.
Yeah,
it's very
Tom.
awkward to do that with yourself.
He's got a great personality. He really,
And
truly does.
and he used to promote large water skiing events, so that he knows how to promote.
How large were the skis?
The events that he did
No,
were.
it's a joke.
Oh,
I was,
sorry,
I was
missed
using the
it.
word
Yeah.
large, and what do you call it, Rob? When you put it to another word,
I don't know.
large skis. Never mind.
At any rate, he's good at promotion, and he's a very enthusiastic person. And so, yeah, I've said between the 2 of us, I think we're a good team for that.
You are a good team.
I think
yeah,
so. Good
yeah.
fit.
But he feels confident because he feels he has a really good product.
But does he give you any feedback as the books are being done, or does he wait till they're completely done? Like, does he get to read the drafts and then give you feedback?
He hears what I have to say during the process.
Oh, like when you're eating? You mean?
Yeah.
Like at dinner? Like you're at dinner and you.
I mean, when we're sitting out or when we're on the phone continuously during the day or
Oh, okay.
whenever it happens to pop into my mind.
So is he here today? Is he outside?
He's listening on the radio.
Oh,
he
on the
wanted
radio.
to get the radio sensation because he knows he can see YouTube later.
Oh, okay, yeah, the YouTube thing will be there.
But your books are really wonderful. They really are an excellent read.
I'm so pleased that everybody's been enjoying them because you write them and they seem snappy to you, and then your friend reads them and they say it's snappy to them. But then when it gets out into the public, and at the big book signing we did at the Horsey Yard Sale, where we kind of did the pre-release of it, we sold a huge amount of books. We sold 10 full sets of Crackshot right off the bat. And the people were, 2 of them had read Wife Wanted. They were like, oh, good, you've got something new. And they just took them. They didn't even look at them. I was like, wait a sec, you have to see the picture. Oh, even better. But they didn't care. They're like, oh, I read Wife Wanted. Oh, I loved your book. Here, yes, I'll take your other ones. I also did a specific thing in my books, which a lot of people don't do, which is I made a larger font. I did not try and save pennies by making smaller font, make the book cheaper so that I can make more money.
Well, thank you for doing that.
I did that
I just
so
got new
the
glasses.
font is friendly and you can read it.
Yes.
And even the young people who opened it up, they don't need a spotlight in bed to read it.
That's right, yeah, that's
and
right,
so the
yeah.
young people up now were like, oh, this is nice.
No, it's a good point.
And so I put more into my production costs in exchange for people being able to read it.
So I want to share notes with you. I want to see your experience and ours. Yeah, just to tell you what I'm talking about. Robin and I have a history, a million years ago, of doing children's programs and children's music. Okay, so when we started doing this, we wondered if those people who knew us as children's performers or whatever they called us were going to have a hard time hearing us talk about politics or adult things, in other words. Okay, we wondered if it was going to interfere. You do both also. You do children's writing and adult writing. Does it ever worry you? Does it concern you that the moms and dads who are fans of your children, because the children won't read this.
Not one of the parents
felt
there was a single problem.
No.
They simply asked what it was, and the people who came and looked at the books, one's like, it was really interesting. One woman said, oh, I never read about sex. It makes me too uncomfortable. And her girlfriend just died of laughing. But she bought The Enchanted Hollow. So she had there's one is about one thing, one is about another.
Yeah.
What happens in your bedroom is private. And I think that's,
Well, maybe that's what she meant. Maybe she meant I hate reading about sex out loud.
well, she said it made her uncomfortable.
Maybe out loud is the two words she left
I
out.
don't think she said out loud. So I don't know. I mean, I think that sometimes people get a little too uptight
Oh, yes.
about stuff, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with sex. Every one of us is on the planet because of it.
That's right.
You cannot be on this planet
I
without
know.
somebody, unless we're not talking about the miracle babies with the in vitro. Okay, forget it. That's a little tiny percentage. So I mean, I don't know. I'm planning on going for it. I don't want to
I'm
split
with
the
you.
titles because we're
No.
also marketing me.
Right. yeah.
Right, and how am I supposed to be marketing me as Eve Olsen doing children's book and then give myself another name for this? It's too many hats,
some
and I don't
people
think
do.
there's anything wrong. I know it's very popular for a lot of authors.
Some people do. That's why I was asking the question.
But,
we have authors who, it's not children's books, it's just another genre.
Huh.
Like they'll do romance novels and then they'll do like historical novels. And they've
Yeah.
got 2 different names. And I always say, why do you do that? It seems like your name would be fine on both books.
I know people have done a lot of that in the past, and it's been a conscious decision to not do that.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I think that was the right decision.
Well, good. I said I don't see why something shouldn't be suitable. My girlfriend who has Wife Wanted, her daughter looked and went, so that's for high school, right?
Yeah.
And her mom was like,
nice.
yeah. That's what the editor in New York said about Wife Wanted and Crackshot and everything else. These are also the teenage girl's fantasies, the fantasy of the gorgeous boy who lived up the block from you, who's a little bit older, who's been your best friend your whole life, and is going to be your husband.
Exactly.
And isn't that everybody's fantasy?
His name was Kevin, I think. I remember.
Oh, so that was your crush there, huh?
No. Oh, wow. No.
And people are always fascinated with the Old West. I know you went from the cowboy stories, and then Hollywood went to space, and then they're kind of coming back to the cowboy ways. But I think the cowboy is tried and true because everything was brand new for them because there wasn't anything that really preceded them.
It was a new lifestyle, the Wild West. And it was a very short period. It was only about a 40 or 50 year period of time that it existed. My next book worth fighting for. It takes place in 1867 in the gold country of California, which I spent
Wow,
a great deal of time there, too. I only write about places I've been.
And times before you were there.
Well, I mean, The Enchanted Hollow and The Wife Wanted are both contemporary.
That's true, yeah.
I like writing about the old times, though.
Yeah. Well, we like reading about them. Eve, you're a very talented writer and so prolific. You're such an inspiration. Again, the amount of work that you're able to do is very impressive. Thank you for coming in and sharing this with us. Do we want to give away some books? I know you
Yes.
brought some in. Okay. So if you would like Eve's books, let's give all 3 to one person.
That sounds like a good idea to me,
Okay,
yes.
so if you would like the 3 books, please call in right now. We'll take a call at random, 622-9622. Let me take this one here. Good morning. You've got the books. Who's this?
Thank you. This is Gene.
Gene. Okay, Gene, you know where we are, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got 3 Crackshot books.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Eve Olsen, thank you. Do you want to, let's see, I found your books on Amazon, and I think I asked you earlier, do you have a website? I know you have an Instagram account, because I'm liking your pictures all the time.
And Facebook, I could be reached on either. I'm both public.
And I just tagged you, by the way, on your Facebook page.
Great.
The picture I took of you. Thank you, Eve. Thank you for coming in.
And who am I writing the book to?
Oh, Gene.
Gene?
Yeah, the dancing machine.
Yes.
G-E-N-E?
Yes.
I believe he's the dancing machine, isn't he, Robin?
I think so.
Pretty sure, yeah. All right, Eve, thank you. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll be right back.
Get it for less.